Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Boobies and Newbies. You can follow us at Boobies Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you'd like to support the podcast and get a little extra bonus Boobies content every month, you can support us on Patreon at Boobies Podcast. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I'm joined by Zoe Wernick, one of the co-hosts of one of my favorite romance review podcasts, Tea and Strumpets. Welcome, Zoe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you, although I feel silly that we're recording virtually and we're really only an hour away from each other?
Okay, it's definitely more with traffic. So.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it definitely takes more than an hour just to get out of Los Angeles.
Yes, most definitely. Usually the bulk of the drive from LA anywhere is just getting out of LA, and then the rest of the drive is just a straight shot into the next city.
Absolutely. I know. I had to drive actually to LAX airport this morning to pick my roommate up, and there was no traffic, and I just, whenever that happens, I sort of ask myself okay, what's wrong? What's going on outside? Something's up and I am missing it.
Am I not supposed to be driving right now?
Exactly. I know, because whenever there's just no traffic and people, I'm sure this is the same for people in New York. Well, I just assume people in New York don't drive,
Lucky
that live
them.
in the city. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
But I'm sure anybody who lives in cities has to deal with this. But yeah, I don't know. It's living in Los Angeles. It is its own beast, and it dictates what you can and can't do and where you will and will not go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. After a while, you just learn. You're where is this going to be happening? Oh, Santa Monica. Oh, I'm sorry. I won't be attending.
Yeah, my husband actually lived in LA for 10 years, and he lived in Santa Monica, and we just joked we would never go east of the 405. So we pretty much, anytime I was up there visiting, we were in Santa Monica, and that's it.
See, that's lovely. And I'm the opposite. I'm closer. I'm on east side of LA, and so if it's west of Hollywood, it's a no-go for me. I have to really love you or be really interested in what we're about to do to make that trek.
Yeah, so your listeners can understand why I, being in San Diego and you being in LA, we are recording remotely.
That's basically what it all boils down to.
Yes.
Now, can you tell everybody a little bit about Tea and Strumpets and what you guys review, and how people can check out the podcast?
Yeah, I would love to. So Tea and Strumpets is a Regency romance review, which means that we are reading historical romance novels. Now, the Regency is actually only about 9 years, but historical romance readers are super enamored with that period of time. So there is a really large amount of books, but we kind of joke and say we're post-wigs, but pre-telephone. But I'm not going to lie, there's definitely going to be some wigs that happen in there. Because there's so many great historical romance novels. And that's just what we love, so we wanted to focus on that. But and then if you want to find us, we're pretty much everywhere that social media is. So we're the username T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, Strumpets, everywhere. And our website is romancepod@gmail.com. And you should listen to our podcast also on all podcast places.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just listening to your Mayhem in Mayfair episode yesterday. Ooh. And I was trying to think if I had read that book because it sounded so familiar. And I honestly don't know if I have or if it's just reminding me of another historical romance.
There's a lot of them. Romance in general thrives on tropes.
Absolutely.
And I never can remember the title or the characters' names of anything. And it's really funny now doing a podcast about romance books because we're just it's the one with the girl and the duke. And they did the thing where they had to run away. And, so
yes,
it's really hard, but we have a lot of fun.
And and that's not to say that they're all unique in their own way and they all have, wonderful characters and everything, but you're absolutely right. There's so many things that just sort of mesh together where especially when you're hosting a romance podcast and, you know, reading multiple books at one time, you'll find yourself asking like, wait, are we talking about the same guy, or was this like a different guy in another book?
Yeah, it's, you know, I just gave my sister a romance novel. She hasn't really read any. And I finally, like, she asked me for one. And so I gave her a Tessa Dare novel. And I know you've reviewed Tessa Dare.
Love.
Yes.
Yes.
She's an excellent gateway. And she texted me, she's like, this is Beauty and the Beast. And I was like, yeah, I know. Isn't it great? So
yeah, that's one of my favorite things though about romance, and is just that regardless of if you're reading historical or contemporary, is there's just so many connections you can make. Oh, and speaking of that, we'll talk about that in this episode for sure, because we're basically reading fan fiction this episode. That's like what it all boils down to.
Which actually, fan fiction was my introduction to like romance erotica, maybe. I realized this just like the last week. I had forgotten that as like a high schooler, I stumbled upon Harry Potter fan fiction.
Fanfic.
And it was like very smutty. And so, yeah, that's what we're reading this week.
No, that's fantastic. We did an episode that was all about fan fiction, and I was like the newbie in that episode because I really didn't know that much about fan fiction, and my friend and guest for that episode, Abby, like schooled me, and I found it so interesting. And I think my favorite one we read was some Buffy the Vampire Slayer fanfic. That was pretty hot.
I remember so much of it too. Like there was some good stuff. And I honestly think I even read one that was like 600 pages long. Oof. I mean, I was really into it. And I kind of can't believe that I like pushed that aside in my brain. And I only just like recalled it recently, because that was a big part of my life for a while. But anyhow.
Yeah, well, perfect. That's, I mean, you know, what a great way to segue into this book, which again is very much fan fiction. And before we talk about the book itself, it's funny because I'm sure people are listening and wondering, how is Zoe a newbie if she's already like an avid romance reader? She hosts a romance podcast. But the reason I have Zoe on the show, and the reason we chose the novella that we'll be discussing today, is Zoe is a newbie when it comes to contemporary romance. Isn't that right?
It's so true. This is the first contemporary that I have ever read. I have read hundreds of books about dukes and carriages. And I mean, like, I don't even venture like out of, you know, the greater UK area.
Wow.
I mean, so this is so new for me. And this book had a lot of firsts for me. Good. It wasn't just, it was the first one I've ever read that was in first person. So that was really different. And definitely contemporary, and may I say paranormal?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, there's ghosts involved. Like, I mean, I feel like it has to be called paranormal.
Yeah, so I got a lot of firsts with this book, so very cool.
Ooh, well, I'm so glad. Okay, well, let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today, Zoe and I will be discussing the novella Halloween Boo, aka book number 1 in the Holiday Hunk series by Sarah Spade. And Sarah Spade, by the way, I tried looking up, and it's definitely a pseudonym. I'm not sure who the author is behind Sarah Spade, but she uses this name exclusively. Oh, he, or they, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They use this name exclusively to write holiday-themed romances. So this novella was published October 2018. It's available on Amazon for just 99 cents, Kindle edition, and at 100 pages, it basically figures out to a penny per page. So I think your money's going to a good cause.
Yeah, I read this book very quickly. It was a nice, quick afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like thinking like if anybody's like commuting like by train or something, like, or you need, you know, a long Uber ride, like this is going to get you through your commute. It is a quick read. Oh, and by the way, there are also 5 more books in the Holiday Hunk series.
Whoa,
yep.
That's so many more.
5 more. Mind you, this is the first book, and this was published this time last year. So there have been 5 more since October last year, and each of them is set against the backdrop of a different holiday.
That's Impressive. I'm wondering what the holidays are. So I'm going to guess Christmas. Do you know all the holidays?
Yeah. I've got the list here. So yeah, tell me what you think is on there.
I'm going to think it's Christmas.
Yes.
Then I'm going to think New Year's.
Yes.
Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Okay, there's only one more left, right? Two more. Okay. St. Patrick's Day?
Yep.
And, okay, 4th of July.
Oh my gosh, you nailed them. That is 5 out of 5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been around romance a little bit, and those seemed like holidays that you could make a story around. So cool.
Right. Although I feel like Thanksgiving is missing.
Absolutely.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, I want like a random one too. Like I want like Arbor Day or something in there.
I was thinking about that with Thanksgiving because, we were picking a book for our podcast that was Halloween themed, which is a little bit hard because they don't have Halloween in Regency, England. Yeah. So I was like trying to come up with something that was a little bit spooky. And then I did think about, after reading this one, I was like, are there a bunch of Thanksgiving romances that are contemporary? I'm sure that there are. But
yes.
Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the year. And there is nothing like family and love and friends and fun. And I just think there's got to be a lot of great romances about that.
I feel like you're missing the biggest F that's part of Thanksgiving, which for me is the food.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But your answer was very sweet. Like family, friends, fun, gathering together, being thankful. And I'm like, bitch, bring on the food. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Now that I'm an adult, I find actually that I do most of the time the food stuff. So I don't know why I'm still remembering family, friends, and fun.
Forget them. Ugh. Yeah. But yeah, this is part of our sort of Halloween series we're doing in October, or Cocktober, as we're calling it. So good. Oh God, I love it. I feel like I wish every month was Cocktober, but it's a special time of year.
It is.
Soon to be Boobsmas once again in December.
Oh, I loved hopping holiday season to holiday season.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, that's kind of what's coming up for us is Cocktober this month. November, we've got a couple, we have at least one Thanksgiving read in November, but Boobsmas is what it's all about, and it's coming up quickly, so people should prepare themselves. But yeah, so for this one, I had to choose this specific story because it answered a question that I've been asking for years as far as paranormal romance is concerned. And that question is, are there ghosts having sex in romance? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
Kind of.
I mean, sort of. Yeah, we'll get into it.
Before we jump into our discussion, here is the quick Amazon synopsis. You know what? I shouldn't even say quick because I feel like this synopsis from Amazon is almost as long as the novella. So, here we go. Let's dive in. A ghost falling in love with a mortal? It's just a bunch of hocus pocus. Let's count the hocus pocus references, shall we? Dani. So I think my apartment is haunted. No, really. Spooky things have been happening to me ever since I moved in last year. At first, I ignored them. Later, I got used to the idea that I shared my place with a ghost. I even called him Casper. We got along just fine. Until a sexy hunk showed up the night before Halloween and told me that his name wasn't Casper, it was Zack. And that on All Hallows Eve, certain ghosts sometimes have the power to cross over into the human world. Which he did because he loves me. Okay, then. That's just Dani's point of view. Here we go. Here's part 2. Zack. I'm in love. The only problem, she's alive. And me, I'm kinda not. At least I'm not on every day except for October 31st, because on Halloween, anything goes. I want Dani, and even if it's only for one night when ghosts can cross over to the living world, I'll take what I can get, because I love a mortal, and it's not just hocus pocus.
Oh, God.
I don't remember reading that part. That's funny.
I definitely read the first part.
Yeah, I think I just was like, okay, hocus pocus, great. But it was still going. Danielle Williams doesn't believe in ghosts, but this Halloween, after a year of watching over and falling in love with his mortal houseguest, Zack Banks is ready to prove that this particular ghost might just believe in her.
Oh my gosh.
Whew, boy.
Okay, so what? So I think I read like the first maybe 3 sentences of that and then started reading the book.
Yeah, because I was just like, okay, she's alive, he's dead. Great, go.
Okay, yeah. And I didn't realize that it was a hocus pocus story until the second chapter. And I think like it was in the back of my mind like, oh, this is Danny. Like, you know, like the names. And then all of a sudden his name was Zack. And I was like, it's hocus pocus. It's hocus pocus.
Yes, I know.
I was just like...
Well, and she actually, like, Sarah Spade has, like, a note about how this is basically fan fiction for Hocus Pocus, but it's in the very end of the story. So it's like if you're not as familiar with Hocus Pocus, or if for some reason you are and it's just not catching on, you know, you might not even realize it until you get to the end. Yeah. That's kind of what it was.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I was totally here for that. I love Hocus Pocus.
I do too. I actually just watched it for the first time this season.
Oh my gosh.
The other night. So I was very excited.
Congratulations. You've done it.
Thank you.
90s child, check mark.
I mean, okay, no, I need to rephrase that because I meant I watched it for the first time like this year. Like this was the first 2019 viewing of it.
This makes way more sense. I have not yet had my 2019 viewing of it. So
okay, yeah, because I was going to say I don't want people to assume that I have not seen
I'm so sorry
Hocus
that
Pocus.
I wrongfully made people think for even just a half of a second that you hadn't seen Hocus Pocus before.
It's okay. It's okay. We're going to let it slide. We're going to just so everybody, as long as everyone is clear that I have seen this movie many times over, it's going to be okay.
I'll confess a Hocus Pocus sin here, and that is I don't think I've seen it in probably 5 years. So I was thinking, especially after reading this book, I need to go back and watch it because I used to have TV and it's always on TV. And then I lived elsewhere where I didn't have TV for a while, for 3 or 4 years. And now I don't have cable, but I think it's on like every streaming service. So we'll fix it.
Well, and it totally is one of those movies though, where it's like the only reason I do watch it so often is because it will be on TV and we do have cable. Like if I didn't have cable, I feel like it's not that I would forget about it. It's just that it wouldn't necessarily be on my mind. But when you have cable, it is on Disney Channel literally every day in October.
I think it's that and then Halloween Town and then that and then Halloween Town.
Yep.
So,
fine by me. Fine by me. And you know what's funny too is like, you know, again, I live in LA and they're showing both of those movies on like rooftop bar movie theaters in the month of October. So I have tickets to go see both.
That's a good way to spend an evening. You've done well.
It is. I'm so excited. And you know, it's so silly because I'm sure people are going to be like, you've seen it though. Yeah, but have I seen it on a big screen on a rooftop with like a Halloween cocktail in my hand? No.
No, and that Halloween cocktail is going to make everything even more exciting. Plus all the other people that are there and sharing in the excitement. I mean, like anytime you're in a room with a bunch of people that are also excited about the same thing that you are, it's just awesome.
And I'm going to dress up for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Just the names alone. I mean, our main character is Danny. Our, leading male is Zachary. Although I thought, maybe I'm totally like, I misread this the whole time. I thought in Hocus Pocus, his name was Thackeray. Is it not? It's probably Zachary because I feel like why would you change that, for it? But I don't know.
No idea. I think you might be right.
Maybe I've just been mishearing this for like 20 years.
Oh gosh. Yeah, you're totally right. IMDb tells me that it's Thackeray. So you are right.
Okay. Because I was questioning everything I knew about Hocus Pocus when his name was Zachary. I was like, wait a second, what did I get wrong?
And it's really funny because, I mean, and I'm sure that they probably chose that because the name Thackeray would be weird in kind of modern context.
Sure.
So like Zachary sounds like Thackeray, and they tricked me, right? Me, the more casual Hocus Pocus viewer, shall we say. I was like, I saw that name and I was like, yes, that's him. And like that with the Danny and the Ackery, of, shall we say, I made that connection.
Yeah, whatever Ackery you choose to, call him. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
No. So we have Dani and we have Zachary. And, it's so funny, too, because I feel like every time I watch Hocus Pocus, one of the things I do think about is, like, the relationship between Dani, who's the little girl in Hocus Pocus, played by super young Thora Birch. And then Zachary, or Thackeray, whatever the fuck you want to name him, the one who turns into a cat. But when he turns back into, like, little, spoiler alert, ghost boy Thackeray at the end of the movie, and he, like, kisses her on the cheek, I was like, wait a second. Was this romantic? I'm not sure. But I feel like Sarah Spade watched that movie and she's like, I bet if those two grew up, they would want a bone.
I think I always took that away, that there was like this romantic tension between the two of them. And she's like very young kids.
Yeah.
So like, what do kids really have? Like, how much romance do they have? They just have this like little kind of innocent crush thing going on. But I always thought that. So I don't know.
Okay.
It's nice to see them grow up and get together.
Yeah, as adults. Yes, it's
as
fine.
Adults. Consenting adults.
Yeah, that's very important. Especially, when ghosts are involved. I feel like that's a whole other topic to talk about in this story, but
definitely.
And then other characters we have, Allison is Dani's friend, and Allison is also a role in Hocus Pocus. Who else? Dani's brother is named Max. It's the same in the movie. There's even at the very end when we find out more about Zachary when he's alive. His brother is Emil, and in the movie it was Emily. So I'm like, okay. They live in Salem. She dresses as a witch for Halloween. I mean, if you're a fan of Hocus Pocus, like, you're just going to be pulling out parallels the whole way through the story.
Yeah, it was really, it's funny, I didn't catch on to those. Again, I'm a little more cash on the Hocus Pocus stuff, but, I definitely just like, I got really excited about the whole ghost thing and also nervous at the same time.
Yes.
I was like, I wanted to know what was going to happen and how the hell they were going to have a happily ever after.
Because, that was me too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I hear, it's so funny when we talk about different, subgenres of romance, and I mention paranormal, I feel like a natural response I get from people is like, oh, you mean like ghosts? And my response is always, I have yet to read a ghost romance. I don't know if, I'm sure they exist. I just haven't read one. And so, again, I was so excited when I read that he's a ghost and she's human. But I had the same question that you did, where I was like, wait a second. How is this possibly going to work out in the end? Like, are they just going to continue to, like, cohabitate in the apartment that he had when he was alive, but he's now dead, and so she now has it? Like, how's that going to work?
Yeah, I figured there were like 3 possible outcomes, right? There was the like, they have one night and that's their happily for now.
Right.
And, or, they have some weird cohabitation situation or she dies.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like any of those that much.
Yeah.
So when the ending wasn't like that, I was so into it.
Yeah, because I also was thinking, instead of her dying, which I was like, that could be a possibility, but that's for sure on the darker side.
Yes.
But I was like, oh, it's probably going to be kind of cheesy, like, oh my gosh, her kiss brought him back to life or something like that.
Or I was afraid like, she was actually already dead or something,
Oh, damn. You were going like all Sixth Sense up in here. Yeah, no, it's, that's so funny.
For the cheesy, like, Snow White kiss back to life, I didn't think that one, that's brilliant and also wonderful that it didn't happen.
That's what I was worried about happening. And so I am thankful that that's not the ending we got. But before we even get to the ending, we have to, like, set this up clearly for people, because they're just thinking ghost, non-ghost, how does that work? Okay, well, let me tell you. The way this works is Zachary/Thackeray, whatever his name is, Ackery, he is a ghost, but he doesn't really remember lots of things about when he was alive, and he lives in this apartment and he can't leave the apartment. And Dani moves into the apartment and he is smitten. He like falls in love with her. And this is like where the one sort of creepy element plays in is he can watch her like all the time and he can't leave. Like, I mean, there's nowhere for him to go. And so that's the one thing. And it's just kind of a thing with ghosts that I'm like, it's creepy in like not that they'll scare you kind of way, but in like, is someone watching me when I'm doing all the things that I do?
Yeah.
Like, it's just not, I don't like to think about that. So
yeah. And I mean, like, he's trying to be polite.
Yes.
And like the author kind of gets through it by saying that like he won't watch her in private moments, but I mean.
But he does.
He does.
Accidentally.
He can't look away.
Exactly. Yeah. So if anybody's wondering, there's definitely a scene where he sees her masturbating. And more than that, instead of walking away, you know, because he's so in love with her, he like can somehow kind of communicate with her. Like, this is where it gets a little iffy for me.
Well, we're getting closer to Halloween, right? Like, so in the lore, we're getting closer to Halloween. So he's getting more corporeal, right? So he's like getting more abilities because of Halloween magic, I guess.
Although we totally get from like the very get-go, like even in the very first chapter, Dani acknowledges the fact that she has a ghost living in her apartment with her. And the reason she has come to that conclusion is that her ghost, who she calls Casper, but is actually Ackery, leaves her presents like a flower. He draws a heart in like sugar or flour that's like been sprinkled on the counter when she's baking. And it's all stuff that he says he can do with like these powers he has, which I was like, this is something that I'm less familiar with ghost lore. So I did find that really interesting. Like, I feel like I don't know enough about ghosts. But yeah, I thought that was cool.
I've watched a lot of Supernatural, so I know like a thing or two about. No, I'm just kidding.
Tell me.
I've seen ghosts do weird shit on TV shows, so like sometimes maybe, and but you know, we only have about 100 pages to get through this here, so I think we have to like either accept it and
just
go
keep
forward.
Going.
Yeah,
it's true.
Or there's lots of things I did fixate on. That one wasn't it for me though.
Yeah, no, that one I sort of just rolled with it. I was like, okay, he has like the power to like. It seemed like it was kind of like he could move things by like blowing on them, or you know, like that's what I would expect a ghost to do, right? He can't touch things, he can't feel things, but he like has this sort of presence that's like maybe a little colder, a little blowy. I wrote when he kind of gives her a orgasm during her masturbation scene, I was like, oh, so he gave her a blowjob.
Yeah, that was actually kind of steamy though. So,
oh yeah, no, I love that. Honestly, I feel like the sex scenes are actually really, really strong, and it's only 100-page, story. So I mean, they definitely squeezed in plenty of saucy moments in 100 pages.
Yeah, and they definitely had. I mean, we're gonna get into it later, so I'll stop here.
What are some of the things you really liked about the story? Like as far as characters go, or, just the progression of plot?
So the story, like I really liked that it ended in a way that I didn't expect. We already talked about that, and I kind of thought it was going to fall into these traps.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was definitely my favorite part. And also, like, even though I've seen Hocus Pocus, and kind of, it also has that kind of element of maybe not thinking it's going to end the way it does, somebody's slightly different. I still didn't expect it. And so, like, that was cool to me. I liked some weird stuff. Are we talking about the ending yet? Are we spoiling the ending?
We can totally spoil the ending, but I mean, we'll tell everyone now. Like, if you want to read this book and not know how the ghost and the human end up together, turn away, turn off the music, step away from your headphones.
Just for like an hour, just give it a quick read and then come on back.
It's true. It's true. It's such a quick read. Like, you could go take a bath right now and power through this thing. Go for it. They've been warned.
All right. So it turns out that he becomes a human or corporeal or whatever it is on Halloween because of ghost magic, and they have sex, and that like sort of wakes him up from his coma.
Yeah, I gotta say, I definitely did not see that one coming.
Neither did I, but I was just like, yes, they get to live happily ever after. And one thing I really liked is that he didn't like immediately leave the hospital and go straight to her side, because like if you've been in a coma for a long time, which he had been, I can't remember what it was. Was it 2 years or was it shorter than that?
No, it was like a good while. Like, I feel like it was over a year.
Yeah. And like, as someone who has had like a traumatic surgery in her life, I know what it's like to recover from something like that. And mine was only like 19 days of like hospitalization and all this stuff. So I couldn't even open the microwave when I got home. I was so weak. And so like if he was in a coma for 2 years, there's zero muscles on his body. So at least there was, in this 100-page book, they didn't just jump, straight from the hospital bed to her apartment. He had like a couple of months of recovery and physical therapy. He wanted to get himself to a point of like not scaring the ever-loving shit out of her. Yeah. And I really appreciated the practicality of that, because with all of the weird paranormal stuff, it was like you needed to root it a little bit. And I really appreciated that.
Which is so funny. I liked that too. Although I did make a note where I was like, it's so funny that all of a sudden we're being practical. After like this whole thing about him being a ghost, and, him being human on a Halloween. And I was like, okay, but if it was like any other book, that is something that I would love too, is where I was like, oh my gosh, thank God he took the time to recover. They mention that he's not like as buff as he used to be. Yeah. He's not as healthy. I'm like, oh, I love realism. I am all about it in romance. So
but for
it just felt funny to be in a paranormal romance.
In a paranormal short romance. That's funny that the two of us took it like kind of different ways. I kind of like that too.
Yeah. And it's not that it bugged me. I just was kind of like, that's just odd. Like, that wasn't what I saw coming. But yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. I thought it was a great way to end it. And he does take the time to recover. He comes to her at Christmas time and is like, it's me. Although and again, you can't read, I say that I love realism. You can't read so realistically into this, because you're like, wait a second. He was a ghost and now he's a human. But she remembers him being with her as a ghost. Like, it wasn't all a dream. It wasn't all in his fantasies. Like, but again, paranormal.
Yeah.
I just keep telling myself paranormal, magic, romance.
The magic of Halloween,
Yes.
And ghost stuffs. So.
Exactly. So yeah, as long as you can just sort of like set that aside and just roll with it and everything, you're like, magic, magic, magic.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's a very satisfying ending that I did not expect for this story.
Yeah, and it definitely saved it for me. Like,
yes.
if it had been Snow White, or if it had been, mutual death or something, I just would not have been nearly as satisfied. I think I was so relieved that there was such a clean way to have a happy ending that I was just like, yes, okay, I'm back in.
Yeah, and honestly, how often do you actually read a romance, historical or contemporary, where it's difficult to predict the ending? Like, I mean, that really is like a basic thing alongside with the tropes of romance, is you kind of know, oh, okay, so I can see where like they might have this misunderstanding, but, obviously like in the end, they're going to work it out. Everything's going to be okay. This one, I was really genuinely wondering, how it was going to work out.
Yeah, I mean, like, the contract between a romance novel and a reader is that at the end, the two characters are going to live happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, like, that doesn't happen, and because of that, we as a reader can, like, get a lot closer to the characters. We can let ourselves go. We can invest in them. We can feel safe about that. But
right.
I really didn't know where this was going. And I really, for whatever reason, I kind of did have this, like, all right, I'm going to trust you here. Like, I'm going to trust you that there's going to be a happily ever after, but you're totally right. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know what their happily ever after was going to look like. And that is so rare. Usually it's, you know, they're together at the end of the book and they're making it work. And I read this book and I read another book outside of my comfort zone genre of romance this week, and this last couple of weeks, and both of them really challenged me because I was like, what is their happily ever after going to look like? And
you're absolutely right. Like, I will say, I don't know about you, but as I was reading this one, from the tone of the story and like the way it was progressing, I didn't have a doubt that it would end happily. Mm-hmm. Like, I knew it was going to end happily, mm-hmm. but I just didn't know how. Did it ever feel like it wasn't going to end happily to you?
No, I felt like it was being set up for a happily ever after, and that the characters were going to be really happy with it. I just wasn't sure I was going to be happy with their happily ever after.
That's true. That's very important.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt like, you know, if they were happy, I'd have to live with it, but I just didn't know. I really didn't.
But it all comes down to the fact that we were satisfied with the ending.
Yeah, and that kind of like saved it for me because I'll be honest, I really wasn't a fan of the syntax, the writing.
Okay. So tell me why. Because I mean, I'm not even going to say it because I have some things to say about it too, but I want to hear what you have to say about it first.
Awesome. So basically, like, maybe first person isn't my thing. Maybe.
Okay.
But more than that, I generally like really appreciate good writing, and this is a quick book. So kind of a lot of things in my opinion can be kind of like pushed to the side. It's quick. You can get through it. But there were just a couple little things where like it was so familiar, but like kind of, you know, like they were trying to be like, this is so easy breezy and like, what's what I'm looking for?
Casual?
Yes, casual. It's so casual. Like, it's like you're my friend and you're sitting next to me. But I just felt like it was lazy, you know?
Okay.
And so like a couple times they wrote thing is instead of like the thing is. And I know it's just one word, but to me, it's like, that's not how conversation works. I don't talk to you and say, thing is. If I talk to you, I would say, the thing is, you know?
Right.
And so I was just like, that's not how words work.
Okay. Yeah. And honestly, it would be something where I would be like, okay, maybe this is like vernacular for somebody from a different part of the country, but we learned from the very beginning that Dani is a California girl who has moved to Boston. And we are two California girls reading this book.
Born and
I can
raised.
honestly say I've never said thing is like that. That's just not, again, yeah, you're right. It's not how, you know, people just sort of talk, I guess.
Yeah, there's another one where it's like, you know, a new line and then it says, should have remembered that's not how baking works. And it's like, no, I should have remembered. Like, I should have remembered that's not how words work, Dani. So, I don't know.
It almost sounds like, to me, it sounds like it is very casual. And I'm with you on this to like a certain degree. I totally am. I feel like this was written by somebody not from California. Like, if they're setting up a California girl.
Yeah.
That's at least my take as a California girl.
I would also, I think you might be onto something with your they, them, or he, him.
Okay. Yeah. So it's, again, we don't know. We don't know who Sarah Spade is.
Yeah.
We don't know the name behind the name.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a possibility that Sarah Spade is not a woman, just because I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's not, I really did enjoy a lot of the characters, but I feel like they didn't feel as natural, especially as for Dani's character. Like, I feel like usually a lot of the romance I read is about women. It's for women. It's written by women. That's not to say that, you know, men don't write romance too, or men don't enjoy romance, but it didn't feel as natural as the typical romance I read where a woman is writing the leading female character.
Yeah, I really felt that way, like from the beginning. And so I highlighted at a point that like she gets to Salem and she is partnered with another girl in her department to help her find a house. And I was just like, that's not how this works. Her boss partnered her, like she literally writes, my boss partnered me with another girl in my department, like to find a house. And I was like, no, like they would have HR help you, or you as an adult woman would fucking find a house on your own. That's not how this works.
Also, what like adult woman is saying they partnered me with another girl? Like, I mean, especially in like 2018, 2019, when this is written, I'm just kind of like, I wouldn't say that.
I literally wrote in all caps, what patriarchal bullshit is this in my notes? Because I was just like, no. If my boss partnered me with another girl in my department to help me find an apartment, I would be like, I'm good, thanks. You know,
right. That's implying that I don't have the capabilities to find an apartment for myself.
And there's another kind of weird possessive patriarchal thing later with her brother, where like she says that her brother, she found out that like her brother came out and surveyed the place to make sure he would think that she would be happy here, and he doesn't know that she knows. And I was just like, this isn't cool. Like, this is like weird and creepy, and I don't like any of it. And I don't know. I mean, like, do I really want to read his book now? I mean, do I? Do I?
It's true. Yeah, no. And you know what? It's really interesting too, because I mean, later on when Zack has like the time period during Halloween where he becomes, I guess, alive-ish, a lot of what he's doing is serving Dani.
Yeah.
Like he's cooking for her. He's cleaning for her. He's, I mean, obviously like making her come.
Yeah.
Like it's all these things. And it very much felt like this is kind of like what a man thinks a woman wants sort of situation.
I mean, I agree. But I also feel like there is a passage, you know, when she wakes up in the morning, and he's making pancakes for her and the house is sparkling because he's a ghost and doesn't have to sleep. That is kind of the dream, like, right? So in some romance, the dream is being able to not be the caretaker and to be able to put your feet up and have someone who you like respect enough and trust enough to take care of you. So like, I thought that was okay, but there are definitely like other aspects of that where it got like just a little bit kind of like on the edge.
What were some of the other instances that you can think of?
So like the things that like got me also, this is not necessarily the men's side, but there was like this point when she's talking about her friend Allison, and she's saying like her friend Allison, she says, she told me stories about her parents' annual trips to town. The Shaws used to live in Salem, though they live in Florida now. Every Christmas they come to stay with their daughter, and it's always a disaster. I can't wait to see what happens this year. And I was just like, that's not funny or feminist to me.
No.
Like, that's sad that she's like thinking about her best friend as like, I can't wait to see the disaster that happens when her family comes in town.
Yeah.
Like, boo, fucking bitch.
There were moments too, like in the very beginning, like one of the first lines is all about, how Dani moved to Salem, and she's like, I've never liked Halloween. I don't really get it. And then later on, it's the same exact line almost for when it's Christmas time. She's like, I hate Christmas. Christmas is the worst. And there were moments that just felt so inconsistent with like her character and like things she would say and do. And then other times it would just feel like the complete opposite.
Yeah. And I mean, there's not a lot of book, so there's not a lot of time for development. And I've actually seen like, I will say, like, I read another book that's much longer, and they have kind of this love at first sight thing. And honestly, there was way more tension in this book, in this tiny little snippet of a book, and more believability in their love at first sight kind of than there was in a 300-page book. But I think the saddest thing about this book is something else. And can I read you this quote?
Oh, you go for it. You read away.
Okay. So this is from Zack, and he's thinking. He writes or thinks, I'm definitely dead. Even an accidental glimpse that should have been enough to give me a raging cockstand? Nope. Little Zack didn't so much as even twitch. He's as dead as the rest of my ghostly body. And I'm like, what? That's so sad. There's no boners in heaven?
Yeah,
what?
I can't get started with how many times they mention his dick and his lack of erection. Like, that actually, I wrote this down as one of my notes where I was like, okay, wait a second. When he becomes human-ish, he is fully functioning. He can walk, he can talk, like everything is fine, except when it comes to like his penis, he's like, oh my God, I'm hard. Oh my God, I'm like hard all the time. And then she goes down on him and he comes within like 30 seconds. And I'm just like, so everything works. Everything is absolutely fine. You remember how to cook, clean, all this stuff, but you can't control your penis.
Well, and okay, but let's talk about that blowjob scene, because that also to me made me feel like it was written by a man. Because it was like, she was like, this isn't something I normally like. And I was like, why?
Then why are we doing this?
Yeah. And also like he kept protesting, like, you don't have to do this. And I was just like, this is 2019, my friend. Like, why do you, and I actually recently found out that is a huge, like, misconception in romance or just, like, thought about in romance that, like, women don't like giving blowjobs. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a thing, but it's just not my experience.
Right. Yeah, no. Because I think, you know, and I feel like growing up, you have friends, I'm speaking specifically as like a heterosexual woman, is like, you have friends who are like, oh, I don't like doing that. I don't, you know, like that act. And you know what? Some people don't like it. Fine.
Absolutely.
However, like for me, when I think about it, and I feel like this is how I perceive it in a lot of romance, is like, it's not about the act itself. It's about how it makes your partner feel. And the fact that it's like, he's enjoying it, but I'm enjoying the fact that I'm like, making him enjoy it. Like, completely. I have so much power by doing this. Like, oh my gosh, I make him do this.
Well, for sure. And I also like, I want to add that it's not that like, if you don't like doing that, that's a bad thing. I don't mean to say that at all. What I really mean is that we shouldn't shame people for wanting to do that. And the way that it was written was a bit shameful. Like, ooh, she's doing something dirty. And I'm just like, well, no, it's a blowjob. Plenty of people do blowjobs. It sort of
came out of nowhere, too.
Yeah, because they've been so like free and sexy with each other.
Yeah, and then it's, you know, they had gone to the Halloween party and like come back to her place and everything. And it was like the first thing to happen. And I was just like, wow, this is definitely not where I saw this going. She's been kind of like a little resistant for things to happen right away. But all of a sudden she's like sucking his dick. I'm like, oh. Yeah. Okay. Like, again, it seemed very like male fantasy, like male gazy. Yeah. So,
and the eating the pint of Ben & Jerry's because she was stressed, like cliche.
Yeah. No, again, like the more we talk about it, the more I'm like,
I'm feeling it.
Really thinking that it could be a male author.
Yeah. Which and honestly, like, great. Like, there should be lots of different types of authors. Everybody should read and write romance. Like, let's all get in there and do it. More romance, but, you know, maybe read some other authors too.
I feel like you have to read more of the genre and to write better for the genre.
Yeah. There was also an instance, I just feel like I can't be done talking about the writing until I talk about the use of the word pussy lips.
Oh boy.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
So, okay. I feel like when I read a lot of, especially contemporary romance, I see a lot of use of the word pussy. And there's definitely a good amount of use of the word lips. But it's more rare that I see them used together. Because I feel like it's always implied. Like, we know what you're talking about. We don't have to specifically spell it out.
Yes. And to me, like, that scene is like when he's a ghost and she's fingering herself, and I think he's like blowing on her to like help her come. And like, it's pretty hot. And then she says the word pussy lips, and I was just like, meh, meh. Like,
yeah.
It felt to me very much, I don't know if you listened to My Dad Wrote a Porno, but
yes.
It felt so much like it was something written by Rocky Flintstone.
that, like 70s porn.
And that he like doesn't actually understand anatomy. And so he says like, you know, something about like how he was like jackhammering into her cervix, but actually means it. And like that doesn't anyhow, you know,
right.
It's just, that's not how anatomy works. But so it just felt very out of context and like very immature to me in that moment, just putting those two words together.
That realism creeping in.
I mean, it's not like wrong. It just felt very like
out
incongruous. Yeah, with the rest of especially everything else that was going on. So
no, I'm totally with you. Well, it's the same as like, you're not reading a super hot scene where they're talking about like cock pussy, and then somebody's like, would you please touch my clitoris? You're like, nobody is saying that, you know? So I mean, it's not wrong. It's just in the context of what it was. It just seems very out of place.
Yeah. And then like at the very end, when they do have their reunion, you know, when she does finally see him, like they skim over it. They just say like, he tells me he wasn't really a ghost and yada, yada, yada. And I was just like, but
I know. You know what? I didn't hate that just because I do get annoyed if like we see the same thing or the same conversation like repeated with more people. Like, because we saw him, you know, wake up and go through recovery and all this stuff like in the hospital and talk to his family. I was like, I don't need to see you have the exact same conversation about what happened when we already know as the reader like what happened. But that being said, I would have appreciated maybe a little something more.
Yeah. And okay, so what did you think about like, I think it was the last line or very close to the end when, you know, he comes and comes to her and she, you know, knows he's not a ghost and he's real. And she just is like scrambling to get him in bed. And she's like, I want to fuck you right now. And he goes like, I won't fuck you, Dani, but I will make love to you tonight, tomorrow, and for the rest of our lives. And I was like, I don't know. Before I say how I felt, how did you feel?
I mean, cheesy with a side of Parmesan. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's a little too much for me. Like, it's one of those things, this is one of those things where it kind of makes me think about a male author writing what a woman wants sort of thing is like, I'm not going to fuck you, baby. I'm going to make love to you. And I'm just like, I'm a big fan of the show Friends, but even like I watched an episode recently where Ross uses the term make love and he's basically criticized for it. Like Rachel's like, what are you, a girl? Like,
ooh. And
I'm just like, okay. You know, I appreciate the fact that we have a sensitive man, you know, as this character. And he's I feel like he has more feelings and he has more sensitivities than she does.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it did feel, again, it was one of those moments where it felt out of place.
Yeah, so I completely agree. And it definitely like kind of left me with a sour taste in my mouth at the end, which was annoying because like I found it also like kind of shaming. Like she wants to fuck him, like good for her.
Yeah.
And he's like, I won't do that to you, but I'll make love to you.
Right.
And like that's shaming and invalidating her desires by saying that fucking isn't good enough. Like
making her sound dirty again, like sort of like with the blowjob scene.
Yeah. And I was like, damn it, Zachary, like I liked you. So
right.
I just felt like, again, it kind of like let it down a little bit, which was, I don't know, annoying.
Yeah.
But
there would be those moments where like it would build up and you're like, oh, this is going great. This is going great. And then there would be like a line or two that would just be like, boo.
Yeah, womp, womp.
Like, there it goes, womp, womp.
Yeah, for sure.
But, yeah, so that was definitely, you know, what was a great ending. Not my favorite line to end with, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, let's talk about the sex, though, because I feel like as far as setting aside a little bit of a shame going on, I feel like the sex scenes were actually pretty good.
They were really hot. Like, the ghost, like, I my notes are, the ghost sex was hot. The stupid line about making love at the end was not. So,
you're like, just let them fuck. They can fuck if they want to. We don't need to make love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're here for in this book. It's 100 pages. It's hot and steamy. There's a surprising amount of tension built between the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, I just want to let them do it. But then when there's a couple of weird little things. But generally, I thought it was pretty hot.
And I was surprised in that I was thinking, like, okay, this is gonna, it's kind of like what I said about ghosts earlier. Is I'm like, okay, this can take on a very, like, creepy, voyeuristic, not that voyeurism is bad, but just, like, in the way that it's being shown, in that she doesn't know that he's, like, there and watching her. I was, like, worried that, this isn't gonna be sexy because, he's gonna be watching her. And so I feel like the one great thing I thought the author really did well was, make Zack extremely likable so that when he did come alive and they did have these sexy moments together, you could really get into it.
Absolutely. He was my favorite character of the two.
Yeah.
I identified way more with him than I did with her. She was a little bit like, I don't know.
Womp.
Exactly. That's the best way to describe her. Because, like, she was a little bit irritating, like, but I didn't necessarily feel that was her fault. I felt like she was written that way, right? Like, she was having the tub of Ben and Jerry's, or, complaining about holidays. And so she needs someone that's a little bit softer and squishier.
She was
Zack.
irritating, but she was also, like, irritated by everything.
Yes. That's very true.
Did you have a favorite sexy scene that you wanted to share with the class here?
I did come prepared with a reading.
Oh, good. Let us have it.
Okay, so this is so they didn't have a ton of sex scenes, but this is the scene where it's Halloween and it's after the party. And so here we go. Zack moves closer, dropping to his knees before reaching out to grab my hips. I don't know what he's doing at first, but when he positions me so that I'm laying on my back and his face is inches from my clit, I realize he wants to give me oral again. Normally, I'd be all for that. Normally, I wouldn't have a deadline. I glance at the clock on my bedside table. It's already after 11. Not enough time. At least, I hope not. I'm hoping Zack isn't a 1-minute wonder. I'll never forgive myself if I don't get to fuck you at least once. If there's still time before midnight, you can go down on me all you want. Later. Dick now, mouth later. I think I've finally stunned him this time. You'd think he would have known better since he's been watching me all this time. I've never once shied away from what I wanted before. And now I want Zack.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So anyhow, I just really liked that. I thought that was like where they had tension and they were like, I loved this, like, we're on the clock moment, And
time limit. Gotta get it done.
And there she's being powerful and she's taking what she wants, And I loved that.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well, and there you go. That's like much closer to the end. I have the one from closer to the beginning of the book, which is her masturbation scene.
Yeah.
Where he literally blows her to orgasm. So let's see. I've got an excerpt from there. He blows harder. I want to grab him and pull him closer. Instead, I clutch my sheet between my fingers and yank. I writhe on my bed, anxious enough to want to escape the overwhelming sensitivity while desperate for more. The coil in my belly is stretched so tight, I feel like I'll shatter the second it breaks. God, this orgasm is a long time coming. I don't care if this is a dream or I've finally lost it. In the throes, at this very second, I wouldn't give a shit if a real guy was in here doing this to me. I'd freak out and call the police after I came, of course. But as I'm chasing the elusive peak, right now, I just don't care.
That, I really liked that one too. I was like, okay, I like this. It's like she's being practical, but she's also like, I'm here, I'm in this moment, and this is for me.
It was like, we both had like a problem with how casual the language was sometimes, but there were other times where I did find I was like, oh yeah, it's like your girlfriend just like telling you a story sort of thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cute, but I think that is one of the things with first person narration that it can be overused. Like, you can go past like the level of comfortability to like the level of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And but in the sex scenes, I liked it.
I agree. I thought that was an interesting perspective because I haven't read like first person sex scenes, before. So I was like, I thought that was really interesting. And I feel like that's where it worked, where it was like, I just left a mess of peach cobbler in the kitchen. I was like, I don't give a shit.
Who cares? She's a slob.
An absolute slob. She definitely needs a clean ghost to help her.
That's what help her clean and cook and watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine with her.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. That was really cute, too.
I did. I have to say, one of my favorite things about this is also something that makes me so angry, which is that as creepy as I find ghosts to be, like the fact that they can always be watching you, as a single woman, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be like the ideal dating scenario for me, that somebody already knows what I like, what, I watch, what kind of person I am, and then they just appear. They automatically already love me, and they cook, clean, and take care of me in the bedroom, and I didn't have to go on any, like, Tinder dates. Like, oh my gosh, like, she doesn't even need to leave the house. Like, he is already there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I found like the most kind of joy out of the book. I did highlight the best writing that I thought from the book too.
Oh, good.
Shall I share that one?
Yeah.
So, with a sheepish grin, Zack admits that he doesn't like blueberries or pancakes. Well, he couldn't be perfect. He gets points for making me a breakfast he would never eat. So, not perfect, but pretty damn close. Too bad he's dead. Anyhow, I was like, yes, that made me laugh out loud. It was cute. It was like good insight, and too bad he's dead.
And it's cute. I mean, that's, I want those cute moments. It is, that's what you expect in like romances where there's like dating involved. Like, you want like the cute getting to know each other kind of moments. But in this one, he already knows everything about her.
Yep, he sure does.
Yeah, but I have to say, I mean, I know that we have like some issues with the writing and everything, but for 100 pages, I was thoroughly entertained start to finish. I never questioned if there was going to be a happy ending. I just questioned what it was going to be. And it's a steamy read. It's a sweet read. And I feel like a really good one for Halloween.
I like want to disagree, but I don't. Like, for as many complaints as I had about the book and obviously I voiced those.
Yeah.
I left this book still thinking about it and like coming away kind of with the happier, fun parts. I was like, oh, that was a fun, quick little Halloween read.
Yeah.
It gave me maybe even more than I expected because of the happy ending and the way that they did it. And their chemistry was really believable. And it did way more than I expected it to do. And so and I loved the hocus pocus thing. I thought it was so cute.
I did too. I feel like that's, she's already tapping it, or she, they, he, whoever, they're tapping into, an audience that, when you're thinking about it in terms of hocus pocus, you're already sort of going to be in it to win it, like, regardless of how it goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I also I thought it was an enjoyable read, and I didn't think I was going to think that when I started it. And then I just kept going, and I was like, oh, now I'm done. And oh, that was kind of fun. So
perfect. That's what I want to hear. It seems like maybe you might give contemporary romance another shot.
Definitely. I am intrigued. It's so different than what I was used to. In fact, what you were saying is they were, in these dating romances. And I was like, I have literally never read
what's that?
A romance about dating, because in the, early 1800s, it was courting, but it's they would see each other at a ball, or they would go for a carriage ride. And yeah, that's dating, but it's certainly not the same. It's just not the same. So there's a lot to explore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point for sure. And then there's just as much to explore. I mean, that's what's great about reading all different styles of romance is, you know, every single style has like a little bit different stuff. It's the same tropes in that, you know, they're going to get together and there's going to be some sort of misunderstanding or, you know, a forbidden love, whatever it might be. And, you know, against all odds, it'll happen. Yep. But, you know, they're going to be dating in a much different way in a contemporary romance than they are in a Regency romance.
Much different. Yeah. Although, I'll be honest, a lot of the sex scenes aren't. What happens in the bedroom has kind of always been what's happening in the bedroom for hundreds of years.
Right. I know. I get so annoyed when people are like, wait, they have sex in like Regency, you know, historical romances? What?
Yeah, they have lots of hot, steamy sex. And they also have lots of wonderful relationships as well.
Right. You know, like human beings.
Yes.
Like we've done for so long. They did it back then too.
Yes, they did. And yeah, I love reading about romance. So
perfect.
I love seeing people fall in love.
Well, that's what I like to hear. That's why we do what we do and read what we read.
Yes.
So I think the last thing that I'll have you do is we're just going to wrap up by giving this book a few grades. So we are going to grade Halloween Boo on the story, syntax, and sexcapades. And we've definitely discussed all three rather in-depthly. So we've got plenty to reflect on. As far as story goes, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be, what would you like to give Halloween Boo?
So I would give it a 7 because to me, I was just so happy he wasn't actually a ghost.
We have the same. That's exactly what I did. I gave it a 7 too. And yeah, I mean, for reasons that we already talked about, you know, we like
hocus
the
pocus.
ending. Yeah, hocus pocus. I mean, I give it a 10 just for hocus pocus fanfic, but yeah, I think it all kind of evened out for sure. How about syntax out of 10? I'm going to guess probably a little lower.
Yeah, I gave it a 5. I didn't hate it. Obviously, I made it through. So to me, like a 5 is like kind of take it or leave it, right? But and also, so like I even talked about these things already, but like also not just the syntax, but also the patriarchy is what I wrote, you know, because I did feel like there were some things that weren't that feminist empowering, and like that's important to me when I'm reading a romance. I want romance to lift people up, and there can be like, you know, whips and chains and you know, cool, exciting sex things, and we can still lift each other up.
Oh, absolutely. And hell, if there's sex and whips and chains and stuff, we can literally lift people up. Like that
yes, we can.
That is fine by me. Yeah, no, I'm in the same ballpark. I gave it a 6, and just because I was like, well, I don't think the writing is as strong as the story. You know, and we gave lots of examples for that. So
absolutely.
I'd be interested to see. I don't know if like based off of this one, if I would read another Sarah Spade book, although I am tempted to see at least one more in the Holiday Hunk series just to sort of, you know, see if it is like a consistent issue in terms of like the writing. But I don't know. I'm like tempted to see and then tempted to just kind of be like, it was fun.
I mean, I'm like also a little tempted just because it's like her brother Max, I think, is the next one. And he's like kind of a weird alpha asshole. Alpha doesn't have to be asshole, but like in this one, I get that weird skeezy feeling about him kind of being controlling. And then like it's with her friend Allison, and I'm just like, is it also a fanfic of something else, or is it like, you know, is it a retelling of some other story,
right? Or
is it just a Christmas love story? So
good question. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, that is a Christmas read. Maybe it'll be a boobsmas read. I'm not sure. We'll see. But okay, and then let's wrap up with the sexcapades out of 10. What do you think?
So I rated this a little lower when I wrote my notes, and I'm wondering if maybe I'm going to bump it up. But so I think I'm going to say a 6.5 because the ghost sex was hot, and like their sex was hot, but I got so turned off when I read it about like the stupid line at the end about like making love, and also the blowjob thing where he was like, you don't have to do this. And I was like, what? Come on. I mean, I think it might be a 7. Like I might bump it up to a 7. I'm going to do it. I'm going to bump it to a 7.
Officially.
I think it was fine because when I I'm a little farther removed from actually reading the book, I remember it being like steamy and fun. Obviously, like I had my issues with it, which is why it's not higher for me, but yeah.
No, I'm with you. I gave it an 8 because I thought like the sex itself, like, and you know what? I feel like when I do get to the sex scenes, a lot of the time I sort of pull myself out of the dialogue unless the dialogue is like really helping the scene. So like if the dialogue is just kind of like there, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, you say whatever you say, it's fine. But like if the dialogue's super hot, then it like enhances the scene for me. But I never felt like it like kind of took me out of the sex scenes. Like there were a couple spotty moments for sure, but I know that especially some of the books that we've read for the podcast, there's been other books where I've sort of pulled out sooner because pulling out sooner because I felt like turned off, or like there'd be a moment where I'm like, ooh, that seems a little too sketchy, that's giving me like some rapey vibes.
Not into that.
I never got that, so I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like the making love thing, it just is a little cheesy to me, like but it's not during a sex scene, so I'm like, it's just leading. I let it go. I let that one go.
Fair enough. And I mean, we all have our things that turn us on and don't, and turn us off.
Oh, for
and so,
sure.
Like, I mean, I thought they had some fun, and like the paranormal ghost element was like kind of cool.
Yes.
And, it was interesting.
I've been waiting for ghost sex for years. Like, and here it is.
Yes. I mean, but I'll be honest, I don't know if this is like a true ghost romance, just because he, was in a coma. So you might have to read some more ghost romance to really,
I know. I guess I need to call it more like, I've been waiting for ghost-ish sex.
Yes.
Like,
fair. I mean, and they have a ghost sex scene. Like, he is a ghost. Like, I mean, yes.
Yes.
But I don't know if this is totally representative of all ghost romance, is what I'm saying.
I love that that's even a conversation that we're having. But that so alone true. Tells me that there's just not enough ghost romance or ghost sex out there. So I need more.
All right. So I'm sure there's some, though. Just ask the world and it will provide.
Okay. I'm putting it out there into the universe that, I'm looking for more ghost sex in literature. I'm not looking for that, like, IRL. Like, I don't need that.
I mean, you kind of said, like, it might be cool.
But I'd be okay with it if he actually, like, okay, no, now I'm really questioning it. Like, I'm like, would I be okay with this if he came alive and he was just, like, there all of a sudden, tapping at my window? Or would I be more okay with it? You know what? I'd be okay if he was a ghost if I could see him. Like, if there was, like, some sort of visual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm going to really think about this much longer after we finish recording.
Yeah. Kelly's got some homework.
Whoa, yeah. I'm just, the possibilities are rolling through my head right now.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. It was a totally new experience. It expanded my horizons, my boundaries, my thoughts. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Do I read more holiday hunks? Do I look for other ghost romances? What do I read next?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Exactly. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yes.
Last thing is, do you have, just off the top of your head, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, do you have like your go-to Regency romance that you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I do. So I have one that's technically Regency, and yes, so that one would be, it's called I Kissed an Earl, and it's by Julie Ann Long, and that is an awesome book. It's number 4 in a series, but like most romances, you could read within the series and you're fine, and it is so good. It's about the Everseas and the Redmonds, and there's 11 books in the series, and Yeah, it's number 4. It's about Violet and Captain Asher Flint. And there is just a lot of awesome tension and a voyage on a ship to try to find a pirate named Lachette. And it's great. It's super great.
Well,
and
I'm going to have to check that out.
You should. Violet is an awesome heroine. She is just capricious and feisty, and I love everything about her. And Captain Flint, I mean, I already said captain. Do I need to say any more?
That's it. That's all I need. Like, you say captain, you say pirates, like, I'm in. That is all I need.
But I mean, like, if you do need a little bit of the aristocracy, don't worry, because he's newly been minted the Earl of Ardmay. So he's also an earl. You're fine.
That's my favorite, is like when they have some position, but then they're also like a pirate. I'm like, ooh, like bad boy by sea, good boy by dukedom. Like, great.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, but it really is a wonderful book, and it's got really strong writing, and it's just fabulous. And if you aren't convinced, we do talk about it on the podcast.
Perfect. So. That's the perfect intro is into the series. Is this part of the series that you guys have been discussing on the podcast?
Yeah, so we started with the Pennyroyal Green series, which is that series.
Okay.
But because it has 11 books, we were like, we can't do 11 books of the same author in a row. What were we thinking? But the Pennyroyal Green series was my introduction to romance in general. So it was like the perfect way to start our podcast. So that's why we started there. And it's a great series. And we're kind of weaving in other books along the way. And yeah, there's a lot to check out. We've got our first interview coming up too. So there's a lot on there.
Well, there you go. Everyone's got some reading to do, some homework to do. I'm going to go think about ghosts and figure out how I feel about that. And yeah, we'll leave it at that.